Hey, what's shaking, Warfighter Nation? Ron here with Warfighter Ranch and Isaiah 6:8. It's Saturday. You know what that means. It's time for a little salvation on station because everybody needs a little close air support from time to time.
Big gun 6, Big gun 6. This is Isaiah 6:8 action. Blackjack. I need a safe house. Next mission time now. Full send, over.
Colossians 3:23-24 tells us, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. When I was a kid growing up in the 70s, I grew up watching shows like Emergency, Beretta, and The Rookies. And I always knew I wanted to be a cop or a firefighter when I grew up. My father had been both already, as well as a Marine Corps veteran who served in Vietnam. But we don't always get to do what we want when we grow up now, do we? Well, I've got to tell you, I have been incredibly blessed. I absolutely did. God gave me the opportunity to put me on a path to serve as a firefighter while serving in the Army, even while on jump status at Fort Bragg. He even gave me a combat tour as a fire chief. So did I get close to what I wanted to, be who I wanted to be when I grew up? Not exactly. I was blessed with a whole lot more. Certainly more than I could have even imagined. And I can imagine a lot. Those of you who know my story know all too well what a Forrest Gump type of life I've had. Just being in that right place at the right time during specific and multiple points in history as it was being made. I know it's crazy, right? But the reality is I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Though I may have signed on the dotted line and volunteered for everything under the sun, the reality is that none of it would have happened if it weren't a part of God's will, the good and bad in it all. Yet even after such incredible journeys, we find ourselves still moving at the speed of life, lest we forget to look for the power of purpose and the full measure of each moment, even the ugly ones, especially the ugly ones. I mentioned a moment ago about the good and bad in it all, and I've quoted Jeremiah 29:11 more times than I care to count. However, we all know that it comes together because he does indeed have a plan for us to prosper through his grace and blessings, not necessarily with pockets full of gold. And as we all know, there's a certain amount of ugly thrust into all of our lives as well from time to time. Some from outside sources, and even more usually, the stuff that's self-inflicted. And as we all know, there's a certain amount of ugly thrust into all of our lives as well from time to time. Some from outside sources, and even more usually, the stuff that's self-inflicted. How much, though, has always been up to us. And so I find that God is still refining me. As I often struggle to find the words suitable for this congregation, the Warfighter Nation, I often find myself in awe because I know exactly who I'm talking to. Recently, I was laying down a infamous last coat of epoxy on a dog tag charm I was working on. Now, keep in mind, I've learned over the years that this last quote, the last coat itself, is often equated to the last cast in fishing. I mean, it may or may not be. However, it struck me that due to the nature of the charm itself, which in this case was based off of Psalm 91, I was once again reminded of the significance we all have when serving the kingdom of God. And it's actually what inspired this entire message. So whether you got to grow up and do exactly what you wanted to do with your life, or you're retired or recently separated from service and seeking new purpose, Be reminded of what Paul told us in Colossians, in that whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord, not for selfish or malignant purposes, but for the Lord, and you can't go wrong. Burning bubbles out of the epoxy is a lot like walking in earnest faith. There are flashes of light in oh so many forms, scary moments, pure refinement. The flames don't necessarily harm anything, yet our natural proclivity towards irrational fear of fire is, over time, hopefully diminished through wisdom in hopes of a higher outcome. I was medically retired. I completely lost my identity because all of it was wrapped up in who I had become, an MOS, a position, a shell of who I could be, not certainly who I was created to be. So if you're thinking about doing something new, or you're in a new season of your life that's walking you through the fire right now, while it may never end on this side of heaven, it will always bear fruit. This is true faith, my friends. Turning our own free will over to God and allowing ourselves to be refined by Him is our best possible hope in becoming our best possible selves. I would much rather wait for the one who created me to refine me than to sit around and listen to the world try and define me, because that falls nowhere into His plan for you. Am I still talking about the art of tactical wristwear or the art of spiritual warfare?
Do not get off on exit 22, over.